Welcome everyone, alright? Listen up. If you've noticed my outfit, thank you. Today I'm dressed for the occasion. What occasion, you may ask? The rebirth of a classic game from my childhood. One that brings me a lot of excitement and nostalgia. If you were born in the 90s and struggled through the 2000s with a potato PC like I did, you're probably very familiar with PopCap games. Some of them being, and I might pronounce their names wrong, Insaniquarium, Bookworm, Zuma, Feeding Frenzy, Peggle, Plants vs. Zombies, and many more. The latter is definitely my favorite out of all of them and the one I've dedicated the most time to. I won't go on too much about it, but between the challenging level design, the myriad of unlockables, the humor in the story and its characters, all the mini games and the wonderful music, there is so much to like about it. So you can imagine my excitement when I heard of a project that's attempting to cross over Plants vs. Zombies and The Binding of Isaac by the name of IRULE. IRULE is currently in development and available for everyone to download on itch.io. I will leave a link in the description below if you'd like to check it out. And since you're checking out my channel, feel free to watch more videos, and if you find my content entertaining, subscribe. Thank you very much. As a recording of this video, I will be playing version 0171. Let's go. Before I dive into the review for this game, allow me to get something out of the way first. It is inevitable to analyze it without comparing it to Plants vs. Zombies or The Binding of Isaac. After all, it markets itself that way. But I will try my best to make the comparisons in order to accentuate the things this game does well, not to put it down for what it falls short on. While IRULE borrows heavily from the aforementioned two games, it does so masterfully in order to create a familiar but wholly new experience. I'm sure I will deviate throughout the video, but I would like to talk about two aspects of the game in particular: the themes and the gameplay. When it comes to its themes, IRULE takes most of its influence from TBoI. Everything from setting, the characters, the music, and most importantly, its characteristic meta approach to how the lore is intertwined with the gameplay. However, while the game could have perfectly stood on its own, the developer understands how pivotal that last aspect is to games set in the Binding of Isaac universe. As an example, The Legend of Bumbo is a good game within of itself, but it also serves to illuminate the overarching mythos of the life of Isaac. To this extent, the developers of IRULE make sure to remind you that it isn't the game you are playing, but the game Isaac is playing in his room using his imagination and figurines. We see his hands holding, grabbing, and placing the figurines in game. We see him holding them over a board in the pause menu, and the first time we fail during a run, we are presented with a cutscene in which his mother, who disapproves of what he does, takes his toys away. This attention to detail and leaning into one of the less central but more impactful aspects of The Binding of Isaac as a game, whether intentionally or not, also pays a beautiful tribute to Plants vs. Zombies. Plants vs. Zombies centered around the idea of a human defending their home from hordes of zombies by planting various plants in their front lawn. I believe this premise could have been a disaster even if the gameplay were solid, but whoever developed the game embraced the absurdity with open arms. From the plants being sentient, to the zombies being morally grey while also goofy and sometimes lovable, to Dave the shopkeeper, or Carboot Keeper, and the main villain, Dr. Zombos. The game was not only solid, but also full of flavor. It had that feel of a 90s kids cartoon that certainly didn't take itself seriously, but it still did everything with a lot of heart. And while the themes of IRULE may not allow for the prior, the people that are working on the game certainly adopt the latter. When it comes to its gameplay, IRULE copies the essentials of Plants vs. Zombies. You manage 6 lanes in which you are able to place characters within a hexagonal grid using a gatherable resource in order to defend your base on the left side of the screen from varied enemies attacking it from the right side of it. This greatly increases the familiarity felt in the controls and the applicable strategies for someone who has played Plants vs. Zombies before. The first time I played the game, I quickly fell into old habits and even found myself in the same state of trance where I was looking through what was happening on the screen, but still playing efficiently. I assure you I say all of this as a positive critique, as I've never encountered a game that has been able to replicate something so fundamental about that which it draws some of its inspiration from. In addition, IRULE leverages TBoI's gameplay to capitalize on this achievement, drawing from its roguelike nature and its emphasis on bosses. The Binding of Isaac is a roguelike, which means a few key things. Many aspects of a run are procedurally generated, sort of like a controlled chaos. You may unlock things to progress, but permanent upgrades for future runs are scarce. And when you fail a run, you have to start over from the beginning. The other notable thing about the game is its variety of bosses and boss designs. In its current version, IRULE randomizes layouts within the progression of the floors, enemy density and variety, rewards presented after conquering a level, and items purchasable in the shop after defeating a boss. And although at the moment it only showcases 3 bosses, it seems clear to me that it intends to include a lot of them, not only ones similar to those in TBoI, but also ones with new concepts and ideas in order to up the variety and create a pool for varied boss encounters on each floor. As you can see, my praise for the game, even at such an early stage, is very high. So, do I have anything negative to say about it? Well, hardly. While I believe I may have encountered a bug in the form of not being offered cards after 7 choices during my first run, this could be intended, and also I would not point out those issues in this video for anything other than the purposes of debugging. Nonetheless, I do have a couple of minor adjustments I would like to see made. These are probably subjective and most likely already noted by the developer themselves. The main gatherable resource in the form of hearts can be hard to distinguish sometimes, especially when the screen gets busier and busier at later levels. This is further exacerbated by Little Chad, the main provider of the resource, being a very similar coloration. And while I don't want to give critique without following it with a suggestion, the first thing that comes to mind as a possible tweak would be changing the color of the hearts to that of spirit hearts. But obviously that wouldn't make sense with them coming from Little Chad. The other minor improvement I would like to see is a hotkey for the active item. Seeing how there are very welcome hotkeys for character selection for more efficient placement, being able to map the active item to a key would also be very helpful. Let me know if you agree and what other suggestions you listeners have. If you would have told me a few weeks ago I would be playing a roguelike PvZ with Isaac aesthetic and lore, first of all, I wouldn't have believed you, and second of all, I wouldn't have been able to imagine how much I would enjoy and appreciate it. I'm done gushing over this game. If I piqued your interest, go play it. If you're able to, send some money the developer's way when you download it. And if you're feeling really generous, subscribe to this channel and share the video. Thank you. But for now, talk's over.